Get ready for the greatest roast of all time, the Roast of Tom Brady, a Netflix live event happening May 5th. Hosted by Kevin Hart, the 7-time world champion gets his cleats held to the fire by famous friends and frenemies on an unforgettable night where everything is fair game. Tune in on May 5th at 5 p.m. Pacific time for the Roast of Tom Brady, live only on Netflix.
Mother's Day is around the corner. Find the perfect gift for the mom in your life with a stunning piece of jewelry from Blue Nile. From timeless pearls to dazzling gemstones, Blue Nile has something she'll adore. Need it fast? Most items can ship overnight. Plus, enjoy guaranteed free shipping and returns. Don't miss our special Mother's Day deals. Save big on the season's most beautiful trends. For a limited time, get up to 50% off by going to BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
I'm Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm Jason Kelly.
From Bloomberg, this is The Deal. Each week, you'll hear us in conversation with business icons.
This show will explore deal-making across sports, media, and entertainment.
That is a harsh lesson in business.
Sports is not as simple as bringing a bunch of big names together.
I didn't want to do another stomp you out speech.
It opened up so many more doors.
The show is called The Deal.
Listen to The Deal.
Listen to The Deal on Spotify.
You ready?
Showtime.
On May 3rd, summer starts with The Fall Guy.
Let's do it later.
Let's drink a spicy margarita.
Make some bad decisions.
Yes!
Audiences are falling in love with the most entertaining film of the year.
Fall Guy.
Fall Guy?
Fall guy.
That's what the poster said.
See Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt in the movie critics say exists to make you happy.
Trying to make it out?
Nope.
Because I don't either. It's not what I'm into right now.
What are you into?
Talking.
Yeah.
The Fall Guy. Only in theaters May 3rd. Rated PG-13.
And we are back for a new episode of the Gating Penguin Network Mailbag. The Mailbag took a little time off to kind of wrap up the season, but we are back. As you can probably, if you've been listening, you know that it is now a two-man show. It is myself, Robbie, joined by Snail out in the Emerald City of Seattle. So he is home from work and he is ready to record. Snail, how you said in pre-record, it's a beautiful day out there. You can't beat that this time of year.
No, man, it's been such a. I feel like the older I get, the longer winters seem to kind of feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in our as we get older, they say if you don't use it, you lose it. And when you're cooped up inside all winter and your bones ache from the cold, it's just spring. I have a new appreciation for spring. It's very welcome this year. Yep. It means work's picking up. That means more money. That means that more time to be outside and active. And yeah, man, it's nice. And it's dude, playoffs. Did you catch some of the playoffs over the weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. So the playoffs started on Saturday with what I thought was a kind of lifeless first day of playoff hockey. Carolina and the Islanders are going to be a slog of a series, no matter if it goes 4 games or 7 games.
Dude, yeah.
Carolina did not play great, but found a way to win. I think they are definitely the better team in that series, especially if Freddie Anderson's playing to that level. And then that night we had the opener in Boston, and that was basically, if you could have written up a script for the Bruins to start that series, first off, a good script for Boston, an absolute horror script for the Maple Leafs. That was the script you got there. Boston scores on their first shot. Austin Matthews hits the crossbar on a wide open net, and Boston just dominates that game. And that was just, you kind of just felt that coming, and it delivered in every way imaginable. And I thought it was a very start to the playoffs. Nothing too exciting. But Sunday, did Sunday ever deliver a war in Florida? That series is going to be an absolute firestorm.
Oh, dude, whoever makes it out of that series, like you're looking at, good luck, because you're going to be banged up. They're taking no prisoners in Florida.
The Panthers win 3-2. A defensive masterclass by the Panthers, really holding Tampa Bay to, I think, 15 or 16 shots. If they do that, they're gonna find a lot of success. The Rangers, that's going to be a quick one. The Capitals just don't have the guns, and unless Lindgren is playing on God mode, it's just not going to happen.
Which I wouldn't count on. I wouldn't put my money on this Lindgren fella.
He might still won. He ain't still in 4. It's just not happening. And then we get into the real fun. The game in Winnipeg was just another level.
That was the only game I felt like over the weekend that had that real playoff atmosphere.
Neither goaltender decided they wanted to play.
Nope.
Alexander, every red flag that Colorado fans had about Georgiev coming in was on full display. They scored 6 past a likely Vezina winner, and they lost. That probably does not bode well for them.
That's not good.
That if you score 6 on Hellebuck, you better win that hockey game, and they don't. Just a very bad result for
the memes I saw today of like McKinnon Georgiev conversations after that were hilarious. But dude, like you said, you put up 6 on Hellebuck in the playoffs and you don't come out the victor on that. Yeah. I mean, like you said, doesn't bode well. I mean, Hellebuck, he'll steal a few games. Like you can count on Hellebuck being responsible for a win or 2 coming up. Yeah. And he hasn't even, and like you said, that's only game 1, but I mean, if you were going to get a leg up on Winnipeg, who's had your number all year, that was the game to win.
Yeah, if Georgiev is not playing at least half the level of Hellebuck, Colorado could be in real trouble. Because if the Vezina winner shows up, could be a long series for Colorado. And then late last night on Sunday night, a great game in not far from Snail's neck of the woods, really, in Vancouver. A game that the Predators controlled for pretty much 40 minutes of hockey until that Canucks offense went bang, bang, and kind of took over and led to an eventual 4-2 victory, giving them a leg up in that series early. But that one has all the makings of a 6 or 7 gamer if the teams play that even throughout the series.
I was pissed about that game because I my sexy pick was Preds sweeping Vancouver, and I really felt in my heart that was possible, and I thought the way that they were playing most of that game, I'm like, this is a Barry Trotz team. And essentially what I did with that was I picked the core of Philippe Forsberg, Roman Josi, Ryan McDonough, UC Saros, and Ryan O'Reilly. I'm like, how are those guys not going to just, get it done? Those guys all know how to get it done. I think they're savvy vets. The Vancouver Canucks have been in the playoffs once in the last 6 years or something like that.
I think, and the only time they were in the playoffs was in the bubble. In the
bubble too, which is you don't put an asterisk next to that. By any means,
definitely there were some funny things. I mean, the Coyotes were in a playoff series in that in the bubble. A lot of weird stuff happened in the bubble, but
in the bubble there were players that were on God mode that haven't even been a shell of themselves since. Bo Horvat and Pierre-Luc Dubois were oh my god, these guys are like McDavid level players, and now both of those guys are. Yeah, I mean
there was a 6 overtime game in the bubble, or 5 or 6 overtime game between Columbus and Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Why in the playoffs playing each other? When would you ever hear that? But dude, that Toronto Boston game, the Leafs, did you watch that game?
I turned it off after the second period. It was just this is pathetic.
Dude, it's so funny. The Leafs, they're always harping on that team for being soft, and then when you see the Leafs trying to play out of character and everyone is trying to give Boston the business, it just didn't really. I'm like, you guys forgot that you guys need to still score goals and play. It's not like whoever has the most hits doesn't get a point in this. It was kind of funny to watch. The Bruins looked like a force. I don't know if they can keep that up all playoffs because it was so high intensity. That was an entertaining game to watch, and I love seeing a Leafs Nation suffer. It's just one of my one of my favorite things about hockey. I love fall hockey. I love the Penguins in the playoffs. I love seeing the Leafs fans suffer more. Islanders team too. Just quickly, I'm just kind of out here just throwing a little shade. You're just like the Islanders and the Caps. I mean, dude, the Penguins would be the better opponent. I don't even think that's biased. I think that they would have given another team a run for their money compared the Cap. I was watching some of that Caps game against the Rangers. I mean, dude, I love TJ Oshie, arrival and everything, but as a individual, I love the guy. The dude's old. The dude is old. Ovechkin, old. Carlson, he had that one great year, the year they won the cup. He won the Norris, I believe, that year. He's a shell of himself since. Isn't Pacioretty on the Capitals?
Yeah.
Dude, just a bunch of old snipers on that team, and they're gonna get. It's gonna be a sweep, I think. I just don't see how they can come back.
Yeah,
the Islanders too. They gave Bo Horvat that contract, and that was supposed to be their big. I mean, Nelson, Anders Lee, Barzal, Horvat. They're good players, but offensively, I don't see how that team has enough. I don't know how they made the playoffs, honestly. It's kind of, you're seeing the disparity here in some of these games. And I just feel like the way the Penguins were cooking, dude, Sid in the playoffs, the way he's been playing, it just would have been, it's a shame. It's a shame.
So before we get into the questions here, I have to ask, since you were at work all day, did you see what the Buffalo Sabres did?
On the way home, I did. It's your favorite, Robbie. They go back through the coaching carousel.
That is one that I didn't even believe they would go back to.
I saw Elliot Friedman tweet something that he's hearing that earlier this morning out here. It would have been afternoon for you guys probably, but it was in the before noon. I saw it, and I was like, "There's no way." Like Lindy Ruff, they were chanting "Fire Lindy" 2 seasons in a row in New Jersey in the first weeks of the season. And didn't he used to coach Buffalo back in the day?
Yeah, he took them to a cup final.
What year was that? Was that
he was in 99.
I don't know. Out of all of the potential coaching options out there, I mean, you might as well hire Alain Vigneault or something like that, in my opinion.
Honestly, I knew they were going to go back to the well, to a retread. I did not expect them to go back to Lindy Ruff. That one was an absolute shock to me. And if you thought their 13-year playoff drought was bad, I have bad news for you, because it's going to be a lot longer, I feel.
Why not be patient? Why not let the off season? The coaches are going to lose their job. After the playoffs are over, there will be firings in the NHL. Not to say, and again, that's kind of going back to the well, just going and hiring another coach that's been fired. But dude, Joel Quenneville is pleading to get back into the NHL, and talk about a guy that holds players accountable. You want a coach that'll hold you accountable? We don't know if John Tortorella is going to have a coaching job in Philadelphia after this year. Yeah. There is rumors of him going into management, but you want what about that one dude who won the cup with St. Louis? That one tough customer,
Greg Berube.
Greg Berube. He's going to be looking for a job. He wants to get back into coaching. You go out and hire the dude who was fired 4 weeks ago in Lindy Ruff, and it's all about holding play. It's just, dude, you have so much pressure on you in Buffalo to become good again. You have such a great sports town in Buffalo and a hockey mad city, and you I don't know. Yeah. I feel like they just shoot themselves in the foot. I want them to be good. Even as a Penguins fan, I want Buffalo to be good.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they just shoot themselves in the foot all the time.
Yep. So on to the mailbag now. We have this is part 1. We will do part 2 later in the week. This is an 8-question part here. So I will turn it over to Snail to ask me the first question.
Yep.
You know how the drill works. We rotate from there on out until we're done. So Snail, mic's yours.
All right, Robbie, we got question 1 headed your way, and it's a question regarding the up-and-coming season, the off-season, maybe some Dubas-esque thinking here. What would be your top priority as far as a position to add this upcoming season? Are you thinking about adding, the question here asks, would you rather a third-line center or a top 4 left-handed shot?
Yeah, very, a lot to break down here. 2 options of need. Unfortunately, unless something drastic happens, my takeaway from Kyle Dubas' press conference was Ryan Graves will be on the Pittsburgh Penguins next year, at least to start the season. So your top 4 looks to be pretty much in place with Chris Letang, Ryan Graves, Erik Karlsson, and Marcus Pettersson. But the Penguins, all of their success, all the cups they've won come with a crucial big piece at 3C. Lars Eller is a great 4C. I would love to see them go out and get a big name at 3C. I think you can do it without breaking the bank, but I would love them to go get a new 3C to really, really rework that third line. That depth scoring, again, was if they have any depth scoring this year, they're in the playoffs right now. Having that 3C, a crucial part of what the Penguins want to do, would be absolutely phenomenal to see them go out and get that guy that can be that, and not a guy that you sign for a 1-year deal, a guy that you can get there for the rest of Crosby's tenure, 3-4 year deal that produces like a Raquel, but plays center, gets you 15, 20 goals, but for half the price. That's really where I'm focused on. The 4D or the left-handed defenseman, unless Graves is traded out, I just don't know where the money comes from. I'd much rather see them go get a 3C. I think the money is better well spent there in the situation the Penguins are in. So my vote for that's 3C. And then, again, if the option opens for a left-handed defenseman, we'll go there. But I'm going 3C as my first choice for what they should fill. Should be priority fill this offseason.
Not to put you on the spot, but anyone out there pique your interest as far as third-line center options potentially? Like, I'm huge on that Ryan Hartman guy out in Minnesota. I love that guy's game. I think he plays like second line center. I think he punches a bit above his weight class out there. But a player like him, I've always thought just kind of he's kind of got a little bunting in him. He's kind of a rat. He can score 20, 25 goals on a good year with maybe power play time and all that. He probably wouldn't get that in Pittsburgh, but you never know, at least on the first unit. But
a name that I look at that really pops out to me is Jack Roslovic.
Oh, Roslovic. He's from Ohio, right next to you guys.
Oh, is he? I thought he was Canadian.
No, he's from.
Oh
Ohio.
yeah, see, he's from Columbus. He played for, I believe, the Blue Jackets for a time being.
Winnipeg Blue Jackets
for a while, and he's with the New York Rangers right now, but he's the unrestricted free agent. He is 29 years old. A name that really jumps out off the sheet. It won't happen. Elias Lindholm from Vancouver scored a goal in Game 1 of their series. Maybe a name to keep an eye out on as well. But a guy that you can, that's not just a patch, a guy that's going to be here for a while, and a name that, again, that keeps getting thrown out there until it feels like it's destiny to happen at some point, just because of it's been rumored for like for basically his entire career.
I know where you're going. He played the other night.
Yeah, he played. He did have almost 40 assists this year. It's Max Domi. Maybe again, I know that it's not the sexiest name, and it's a name we've heard a lot, but maybe Pittsburgh is just a system he can play in. He's comfortable. His dad will be basically at every game. His dad semi lives in Pittsburgh. Yeah. Like, just get Max Domi in Pittsburgh. Another name that I think he's a free agent. I don't know what the price would be. Anthony Duclair.
Dude, he is looking great on.
Yeah.
He's a great trade deadline pickup. I feel like when he gets picked up on a trade deadline, he does pretty well.
Yeah, but maybe he just likes playing in Florida. Maybe
he's a warm weather guy.
Maybe he's a warm weather guy, so maybe I'm a little in over my head there. But a Domi, a Roslovic, not young, not like a 25, but a guy that you can sign for 3 or 4 years that can just finally put roots in that 3C position and then build out from around there. Because I don't know if this is possible. Again, we can talk about Jake Ensel, but what are the chances Kyle Dubas makes some trades, opens up some money, and dips his toe back into the Jason Zucker pool?
Dude, I'm not on that train with Zucker. I think he's he's potent in small doses, but it's his health, dude. if you're gonna go out and trade an asset for a guy like him, like Zucker scored a great him and dude Mark Jankowski, former Penguin, didn't know he was still in the NHL.
Yeah, he just showed up. He decided to show up.
He's in the playoffs for Christ's sake. Like, good for him. Zucker. You know what I would like is I'd take Zucker at the trade. If the Penguins are making a push, if they're in the playoffs and they are picking up a veteran piece to bolster for a playoff run, give me Jason Zucker because I like his game.
All right.
But a whole season, I'd worry that he'd pull an Achilles and he'd be out for a year and a half.
So one thing I will say that Anthony Duclair is listed as a left ring, white ring. What about Max Doby at 3C and Duclair?
And then Puljujarvi on the right.
I think that's a pretty solid third line. Again, probably wishful thinking, but Puljujarvi's making less than $1 million. I mean, why not take advantage of that? Even if one of those guys has to be a 1-year deal, Duclair or Domi, get one of them guys in, get those two guys in, and just roll with that. If you're just maximizing the window, maybe you just need to getting guys on 1-year deals and see what you can do.
Well, I mean, Toronto's doing, like, other teams do that too. Like, they signed that Bertuzzi and Domi to a 1-year deal. I think they got cap issues they're going to work out. But, I mean, the Penguins are, all teams that are trying to contend are in a similar boat cap-wise. I'm all for that. Throw one, and if they don't make the playoffs, it's a trade bid at the deadline, and you send them to a contender, and you get a pickback or a roster player. I don't know. It can always kind of come out in the wash if it doesn't work out. But a player like Duclair and Max Domi, dude, I'm all for players like that. And you're seeing, like you're right now, Duclair is making an impact on Tampa Bay with that core in place. You're seeing Max Domi, he's playing first line left wing with Austin Matthews. Like, he's not even in a 3C spot. You give him lesser matchups. I mean, Sullivan's system, you never know what that effect Sullivan's system can have. Sometimes players are better off in other systems. Sometimes you get a plumber and he's under Sullivan's system, and you like, look at Kuhnackel and all these other guys that have come through and been great for the Penguins. Then they go and now they're in Europe or something. So absolutely. I'm on board with that.
All right. So moving on to question number 2, and just for reference, all these questions are from Brian in this episode. So thank you, Brian, once again. But this one's kind of directed towards Snail, and it has to do with off-season acquisitions. But Brian says, I think I let Snail talk me into wanting Trevor Zegras on this team. It's been evident for a while. Youth with the way Sid and Gino are playing is a dangerous combination.
That is a dangerous combination. You're seeing it. The Kings have done it. The Stars are doing it. Who's another example? The Tampa Bay Lightning are kind of doing it to a certain extent. They keep these key core players in place, and then they bring up talented youth. And it pays off. You bring that spunk and energy that they bring. Trevor Zegras, I think, is a guy that you take away the Michigans, you take away the flash, you take away the TikTok presence. You have a very talented American-born hockey player who can score goals and produce points. And in this league, that's what you need to win games. And he's been a part of a rebuilding Anaheim team for so long that I think the Michigans and the Flash and all of that kind of extra stuff has been at the front and center of his game, and he gets knocked for it a lot. But I mean, when you have that in your bag, and I like that he has fun out there. I think that that's an important piece when you're so competitive all the time. You got to still have fun. I think that he played in the U.S. development program. Again, I don't want to bring... Sullivan's coming back next year. I don't mind him coming back. We'll see how we feel at American Thanksgiving next season. But I just wonder if a guy like Zegras under Sullivan's system would be great. And right now, I think when we were bringing this up, this is when the Penguins were in the gutter and it was not looking promising for their playoff push. But I don't know what you have to give up for a guy like that. But Zegras is good for what, 50 to 70 points a year.
He should be.
He plays on power play 1. He can play center. I don't know if he can play wing or not, but when you're a talented enough player, if you can play center, you can definitely take on less responsibility to play wing. I wonder if a guy like him, they've needed pros over there in Anaheim. And if you surround Zegras with guys like Chris Letang, Sidney Crosby, even a Gino Malkin, you just never, that can only be good for a younger developing player like Zegras, who is a competitive guy. He wants to win. He's not in Anaheim there to just waste away and in Michigan his way to retirement. Um, I don't know what you give up for a guy like that, but wouldn't that be just an awesome move by Dubas in the offseason? The only reason why we're even talking about Zegras being potentially an option to be traded for, which that's even a stretch just coming out of my mouth hearing that, is that Zegras and Pat Verbeek, there's rumors that they're not really seeing eye to eye. He signed a bridge contract. I think it's in the 4.5 million-ish range. You can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but he didn't get the bag. He got a bridge deal, and they're built. They have a 1 and 2 C in Mason McTavish and Leo Carlson, the Swede, that they just drafted second overall in this last draft. Zegras isn't a third line center. He's a top 6 type player, and he's not out there killing penalties. He's not grinding in the corners. He's a skill guy, and if you wonder if he is on the outside looking in with that squad, and they're continuing forward with their rebuild. You wonder if they look to acquire maybe another type of pro, like another veteran type player, or if they looking to fill a hole that they don't have. I would hope that Kyle Dubas's job to do this, that he's looking at an option to bring in, not that the Penguins are in a rebuild, but you bring in a guy like Zegras, it speeds up your competitive. You bring in a good player like Zegras, you're getting younger and extremely competitive with what he brings offensively.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, we'll move on from the Zegras rumor mill. And another question here, obviously from Brian. Is Sid the greatest captain in league history? Might be controversial to say, but I think at very least he is in team history.
I mean, he's the only captain that has 3 Stanley Cups in Penguins franchise history. League history, I mean,
Yzerman might have something to say about that.
I mean, Yzerman, there were so many great. Scott Stevens in New Jersey, Messier in New York. There's so many options. I mean, it's almost more of a just pick one for each team, and then because you can make a case for so many all-time legends that were captains. I mean, in Pittsburgh alone, you have Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr on that list as well. But again, Crosby would be the only captain to have 3 Stanley Cups. Mario has the 2 as captain. So I absolutely think that you can make the conversation for the best in Penguins history. And I think it's a very fair conversation to have. As for league history, it would be such a bias to say yes, because you could go to, you could pick fans from the 31 other NHL franchises and get an answer that's probably equal to saying Crosby is the greatest captain in league history. Lidstrom in Detroit, Yzerman in Detroit.
Winning's so important to being a captain, but also there's so many great captains that never even really won much, but they were outstanding leaders in their community and for their, like Jarome Iginla in Calgary. I mean, dude, he did so much for that city. And I'm a biased fan of Iginla, but I mean there's an example, like you said, there's 31 examples for different eras for great captains all time.
Bergeron, though he did win a cup. He was not the captain when he won the cup in Boston.
Was it Chara?
Yeah, Chara was the captain in Boston. Ryan Smith was the captain in Edmonton.
Yeah, Edmonton
is an absolute legend up there, despite never winning a cup. Again, Brendamore in Carolina. Just so many options you could choose from. Even Francis in Carolina, despite never winning a cup.
Joe Thornton.
Joe Thornton never won a cup.
Pavelski.
About 1,000 different Maple Leafs that never won a cup. So many great options to choose from.
Matt Sundin was a hell of a hockey player and a captain.
Matt Sundin. Now, Modano does have a cup, but he was a great leader in Dallas for many years. So many options you could choose from that it's really hard to pick for a league-wide one. But in franchise history, you can absolutely make a fair argument that Crosby up there with Lemieux and Jagr. All right, switching over to Snail here again. You got Sid is roughly 80 points away from being top 5 all-time for even strength points. 1, do Do you think he reaches that top 5 mark? And 2, if he does that make him a lock on the all-time NHL Mount Rushmore?
Yeah, this is the easiest question in the mailbag, and I think it's yes, absolutely he gets there. I don't know if he gets there next season. I think you can't doubt Sid ever. Could he put up 80 points next season, even strength points next season? Yeah, but like I would give it 2 seasons, he'll get it. And I mean, Sid's already a Mount Rushmore player in my book, and I like to think that I take the Penguins fandom bias out of it. I feel like I have respect for a lot of there's a lot of great NHL players out there that deserve consideration for this fabled Mount Rushmore of players. And I wasn't alive to see some of these guys. Like, I mean, I wasn't watching hockey, or I was not alive yet when they were playing. Gordie Howe, Mr. Hockey, so much respect to that guy. Never watched him play, obviously, but I even just his, what he means to the game and his records. I mean, that's who we're watching. Ovi chasing Gretzky. Gretzky was chasing Howe for a lot of stuff. So, and Gretzky, if he's the greatest, the greatest all time, then it's hard to just all of a sudden discount a guy like Gordie Howe. But when you're looking at players all time, it's Mario Lemieux is one of the greatest hockey players of all time, whether you're a Penguins fan or not. There's only 4 places I've learned just this year. There's only 4 heads on Mount Rushmore. I thought it was 5, but give me Gretzky, Howe, and I know Bobby Orr did a lot. He changed the defensive position. He brought in that his skating and all of that. He's won. He's been important to his community. He just checks all the boxes. But in my book, it's Gordie Howe, Wayne Gretzky, Lemieux, and Sid. And I might even put, I know Lemieux has the records, but if you're numbering them 1 through 4, I think that Sid, for what he's accomplished, the way he played the game, I just wonder if I'd put him at 3 on my Mount Rushmore. I think he edges Lemieux back a spot. You just look at what Gordie Howe meant in like the like almost like a saint or a god kind of. And then Gretzky, he's Canadian royalty. I think Sid's there too. I think Sid is like Canadian royalty, hockey royalty. Yeah. All right. The Erik Karlsson trade was beneficial for getting rid of bad contracts, but how do you think things have gone, or how things would have gone if we traded for Hellebuck instead? Trade would have looked different than the Erik Karlsson deal, but maybe that steadiness in net could have helped things end a little bit differently.
A wild hypothetical here, to be honest. I don't know. I don't even really, because I'd have to see the structure of the trade. There were so many moving pieces in that Karlsson trade, and dumping all those bad contracts was such a bonus that even with Karlsson's up and down play this year, I just don't. I still see it as a net positive. How would it have been different with Hellebuck, though?
Just would have tortured the hell out of a great goaltender all year, because the Penguins just were bad in front of whoever was in net.
Could Hellebuck have alone drug them to a playoff spot? I definitely think bad goaltending left enough points on the ice this season. You only needed 3 to make the playoffs. That a goaltender like Hellebuck over Jari or Nedeljkovic could have made the difference. But at the same time, does his worth supplant the defensive core leading Erik Karlsson? Does Hellebuck do enough? Do they make up the points that Karlsson would have been left empty because Karlsson wasn't there? Does Hellebuck do enough to make up that difference? I don't know if this lineup was good enough to do that.
That's tough,
so
yeah.
If you take out the caveat that they just signed Hellebuck and still made the Karlsson trade, again, not really possible because of money and a bunch of other things, then I think he's absolutely worth 3 or more points and carrying the Penguins to the playoffs. But just 1 for 1, unless you can show me somewhere in that lineup that they make up the 50 or 60 points that Karlsson produced, I don't see much of a difference, to be honest. I really don't, unfortunately. But I think they're in roughly the same situation, even with Connor Hellebuck. And again, Connor Hellebuck would be great. I'd love him on my team. But this year, with as bad as that team was, depth-wise, just do not see how much of a difference Hellebuck would have made in the long run.
Mother's Day is around the corner. Find the perfect gift for the mom in your life with a stunning piece of jewelry from Blue Nile. From timeless pearls to dazzling gemstones, Blue Nile has something she'll adore. Need it fast? Most items can ship overnight. Plus, enjoy guaranteed free shipping and returns. Don't miss our special Mother's Day deals. Save big on the season's most beautiful trends. For a limited time, get up to 50% off by going to BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
I'm Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm Jason Kelly.
From Bloomberg, this is The Deal. Each week, you'll hear us in conversation with business icons.
This show will explore deal-making across sports, media, and entertainment.
That is a harsh lesson in business.
Sports is not as simple as bringing a bunch of big names together.
I didn't want to do another stomp you out speech.
It opened up so many more doors.
The show is called
The Deal.
Listen to The Deal.
Listen to The Deal on Spotify.
Is this upcoming season the one we judge Kyle Dubas as a general manager? He had a lot of work to do to erase all the mistakes by Hextall, and with cap restrictions due to bad contracts given out by the latter. That's should say the former, but
I got it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's be honest. We judge our GMs every year, every month, every up and down. We're judging our GM at the time. But yeah, it will be interesting to see how this offseason unfolds and how the Penguins come out of I'm judging how they come out of the gate next season. The way they finished this year so strong, you see the potential that given roster had, and then we're all going to be keeping a close eye on what moves are made in this offseason. For those of you that listen, and we kind of touched on this, Dubas had a hell of a presser that he gave a significant amount of time to discussing the season, personnel. There's going to be things happening in the immediate that will lead to decisions that we'll be judging in October, November. They're going to be taking a long look at this Blomqvist fella down in Wilkes, and they're going to the playoffs. They're going to see if he's going to be, the plan is, if all goes well, he will be in the NHL next year.
Yeah. And
then that leads to, we have unrestricted, I believe he's a UFA, Ned, right? Or is he?
Yes, he's a UFA.
He's a UFA. You have Ned, who I think captured the hearts of a lot of Pittsburgh Penguins fans. And you have Jari, who I think a lot of faith was lost in Jari this year. That's just goaltending. There's three parts to the goaltending conundrum in Pittsburgh that needs to be fixed and resolved, and then will be harshly judged upon based on how October, November goes. I think in my book, that's how I'll probably be operating. And Hextall, it's a little bit of hindsight 2020 on Hextall. We were so frustrated as a fan base, but I mean, they made the playoffs with Hextall at the helm, and he left us with Jack St. Ivany. He left us with, I saw a list of some things that were actually positives that he left us with, and I just remember Jack St. Ivany, and then who else was it?
Ryan Shea?
No, that was a Dubas move. He was in Dallas this last year, and he got a sniff. I'm trying to remember who was. I could rack my brain about this for a while, but Hextall, yeah, he probably shouldn't be a GM again. You look back on some of those. You look back. He was the one who acquired Granlund all of a sudden, didn't he? Yeah, that was him, and he was the one who signed
out of nowhere. Everybody was so mad that they weren't making any trade deadline moves, and then that came through like right at the deadline. Everybody's like, "No, go back to nothing. Yeah, we don't want anything. Let's go back.
Just go back to nothing because Granlund was not it." He's still in the league. He's in San Jose. But Dubas, I think he did his heavy lifting. Let's just say that. I think he did his heavy lifting with acquiring Karlsson. And you're kind of, whether it's for better or worse, you're stuck with that Karlsson contract. We'll see how that pans out. But I think Karlsson is just such a stud. He's such a great pro. He's a historically great defenseman in the league. He's 33 going on 34. The team is better with him than without him, I think. And with this news coming down about Letang, I mean, dude, he might be having major surgery. Did you hear that, Robbie?
Who's that?
Letang?
Yeah, based on what we heard from both Letang and Dubas in their end of season media availability, it certainly sounds like whatever procedure Chris Letang has, it is not going to be minor, and we don't know if it's a serious ligament injury that could take 6 to 10 months to recover from, whether it's an abdominal injury, a core injury that he could be ready for training camp. We really, until we have more information, we don't know what is coming with Chris Letang injury-wise, but it definitely sounds like a significant procedure is going to have to be done to get him back and ready for playing shape.
Well, you got a guy like Karlsson, who's a number one right shot, puck-moving D-man if Chris Letang is out long-term. Looking like it's the critics, you can't satisfy all of them, but it's looking pretty good if he's out for a long time. You still got a guy like Karlsson who can quarterback the power play, blue line, whatever. It's looking pretty good. So yeah, we'll be judging Dubas. It's year to year because he's in a tough spot too. Like you got to admit, like he's taking over a team that is descending as opposed to ascending, and he's in a tough spot with these big core pieces signed, and they want to stay competitive, but they got to get younger on the fly. It's a tough place to be. So there will be judgments coming, but you got to understand it's a tough spot for a Penguins fan and the Penguins organization right now as far as remaining competitive and competing for another cup while Sid's still here. All right, let's talk about Tristan Brose. Tristan Brose signed his entry-level contract. He had a good tournament with Denver. Would you like to see him get a good look at in camp this summer?
So Tristan Brose, a former second-round draft pick by the Penguins, just won a national championship with the Denver Pioneers in college hockey. Didn't
see that one happening either.
No. He scored 2 pretty crucial goals for Denver in their run, 2 overtime winners, including one to knock out Boston BU in the Frozen Four. So Tristan Brose is now officially a Penguin. He signed his entry-level deal. He is in Wilkes-Barre. He will take part in the playoffs there. I don't think there's any plan for Tristan Brose to be in the NHL next year. He'll get a look in camp. He'll be at prospect camp this summer as well. He is still very skinny. He needs to put on some weight, and he's never played 1 ounce of professional hockey in his career. So I do not expect Tristan Brose to be in Pittsburgh aside from mass casualty on the IR next season. Brose needs a year to marinate in the professional game at the AHL and to continue his development. So he'll get a look. I mean, you'll see him he'll probably get a preseason game. One of those early preseason games. You'll see him in the prospect camp this summer, usually July, after the draft and free agency and everything. So you'll get a look at him there as well. So a very interesting prospect, one that he started in Minnesota and then transferred to Denver and really blossomed with Denver. He did not have a great freshman year with Minnesota, but he has progressively gotten better with the POs. And winning a national championship this year. So he's definitely developed into a keep an eye on this guy kind of prospect, and someone that I've become more and more excited about as he's developed. So definitely a name to keep an eye on, see how he develops during his first year as a professional in Wilkes-Barre next year, and really just to see how he plays in the playoffs this year, what kind of run he gets with them. So keep an eye on him. Definitely some promise, and very excited to see what he can do as he continues to develop, because he could be a very important piece as the Penguins kind of transition in the post-Crosby era to whatever comes next. And wrapping up this version of the mailbag, kind of what we talked about a little bit earlier. Snail will get this one. It says, Rangers have to be relieved that the Penguins didn't get in. The way Sid was playing, you know that level was going to be going into overdrive. Remember, without that cheap elbow from Trouba in 2022, we advance.
If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a wonderful Christmas. Yeah, that's the biggest, that was the dagger for Penguins fans, because I think not only Penguins fans, but the hockey universe knew that the Penguins, they chased Shesterkin twice that series. They were, and then Trouba did what he's good at, and he took a couple cheap shots. They knocked out Raquel, they knocked out Sid for that game, and then we all remember that penalty that what was his name? Evan Rodriguez took, and Sullivan tried to shoot lasers out of his eyes at him to kill him on the ice for that. That was their series to take, and you just never know what that team could have done. But it just wasn't meant to be. I'll never forget I was watching the game 7 overtime, and my phone, I had notifications on that at that point still from Elliot Friedman because of the trade deadline. I had his name starred so that when he posted his tweets would just go directly to my home screen because of the trade deadline, and I never took him off. And he was ahead of my TV, and I'm watching the game, and then I just see my phone buzzes, and while the game's going on, I look at my phone and it says Panarin ends it in OT. I just was like, oh my God, maybe they'll challenge it or something. And then it happens 8 seconds later on my screen. That was the last time the Penguins were in the playoffs, and that is they need to get in again before Sid retires, because that will forever leave just such a bad taste in Penguins fans' mouths. I'm sure it doesn't sit well with players who on that team were there. Sid came back early from that concussion to try to get it done. Mm-hmm. Rickard Rakell, if you remember, was playing awesome when he came over from Anaheim at the trade deadline, and he was being physical. He was scoring goals. He was awesome for that team. I was on the fence about re-signing him even then, but they, Hextall re-signed him. And I don't even know what they do with that contract or if they give him another shot next year. But I believe Robbie and I were talking about this before we hopped on, or maybe it was while we were on. But either way, the Penguins, with Sid and the way that they were playing coming down the stretch, the hockey world would rather see Rangers Penguins right now. The Penguins would give any team in the East a better run for their money than I think the Islanders and the Capitals. The Islanders can't score. The Islanders are boring to watch. I'm so sick of seeing the identity line out there. I saw Casey Cizikas is playing on the first line wing. It's just what is Patty Waugh doing out there? The Capitals, again, it's just a lot of great players that once were on that team. Sid had over 90 points this year. He had 40 plus goals. Evgeny Malkin almost had 30 goals. Erik Karlsson is just an electric player. It's been a couple of years since we've seen playoff Erik. In the way Ned was kicking in net, it just would have been so exciting. So the Rangers, I believe too that the Rangers are more relieved that they're playing a Caps team. It's almost like I'd be relieved too if I was a Rangers fan, or if I was in the Rangers organization, that it's okay, I think we can pick apart this Caps team pretty easy. Penguins, different story. What about you, Robbie?
Yeah, I thought the Rangers were probably the best bet for the Penguins to match up with. Again, when you're sneaking into the playoffs, you're going to be an underdog regardless of who you play. But I felt like maybe it was still just lingering thoughts from when they beat them at the beginning of that month to even start this run. It just felt like Shesterkin wasn't the Shesterkin of a few years ago, and even when he was at that level, the Penguins still found a way to chase him in a couple of those games. It just felt like, if they could get in, they could at least at the very least cause issues for the Rangers. Not saying they would win the series, but definitely give us some entertainment. So, yeah, I think that I'm not saying that the Rangers are relieved. I mean, they won the President's Trophy. They probably believe they can beat anybody, but maybe their fans at the very least breathe a little bit easier knowing that they won't have to do with Crosby doing some just insane stuff to carry the Penguins.
One thing that I when I read that question, I was thinking of during the 2010s, I always really wanted to see Pittsburgh and LA meet in a cup final. I just thought that would have been when the Kings were at their peak and the Penguins were, in those years in between their cup runs, the 2009 and the 2016, when they were just trying to figure out a way to get back to the Stanley Cup. Man, I would have loved to see Jonathan Quick. I always wanted to see a Jonathan Quick, Marc-Andre Fleury showdown in net. Just two absolute beauty powerhouses in net. And the closest thing you'll get to that would be a Penguins Rangers. Jonathan Quick probably starting. Seems to have the Penguins number. Couldn't score on they I think every time how many times did they play them? Was it 3? Or was it 2?
Who?
The Rangers this year.
At least 3.
I just think the couple times that Quick started, Penguins couldn't get anything by him, and when Shesterkin's in net, the Penguins just know how to they solve that guy. Seems like most times that he's in net. So, but yeah, Rangers fans, you're lucky this year, but you never know about next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that puts a wrap on part 1 of this week's mailbag. We will have part 2 coming to you later this week. Also, it sounds like we have plans in place for Garrett's farewell episode, which we'll be recording on Wednesday, hopefully out Thursday. No more recaps. Those are done. No more, unless we get on to talk some playoff hockey, which you never know. If we need some content, we'll maybe hop on to talk some playoff hockey and kind of catch up on where the series are and make some more predictions. So get around to that, some more off-season content. But for this week, we'll have another mailbag episode, and Garrett's farewell. So, Snail, do you got any final thoughts before we close the book on mailbag part 1 for this week?
Nope. But yeah, excited for Garrett's farewell episode. It's actually going to be a roast. So please tune in for that. Mailbag part 2, playoffs. I just saw, Boston and Toronto are getting ready to play.
Yep.
It's a great time of year, even though the Penguins aren't. I think I saw Jay Caulfield tweet. It's just not. The playoffs are better when the Penguins are. Or the playoffs are better when the Penguins are in it. Sidney Crosby needs to be in these big moments. But let's. It's going to be interesting to see. I think there's just so many. There's so much good. So many good matchups in this first round. I think it's going to be an awesome spring leading into summer of playoffs.
Absolutely.
And keep rocking with us. We'll be doing mailbags, and everyone tune in for Garrett's last episode.
Absolutely. We're going to make sure that's worth your time. So hopefully wherever you're at, it's beautiful outside and you can listen to this podcast on the porch with a nice cold beverage, whatever your beverage of choice is. But for this episode, I am Robbie. That is Snail. We will talk to you guys later this week.